In just over 2 months of the new administration taking over, America has witnessed an unprecedented security lapse. It was not an external job. Senior-most leaders of the Trump administration inadvertently leaked classified information to a journalist. The incident has raked up a storm. On Monday night, editor-in-chief of The Atlantic published an article that within hours became the biggest story. Jeffrey Goldberg wrote a detailed piece on how the Trump administration added him to a group on Messenger app, Signal, and shared detailed war plans for strikes on Yemen's Houthis. Goldberg went on to elaborate how he knew about the March 15th strikes in Yemen. This after U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth sent details of the war plan, including information on targets, the timing of the strikes, and ammunition used. The group on Signal, where Goldberg was added, was called Houthi PC Small Group. The chart included several high-profile leaders, including Vice President J.D. Vance, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, and several other senior National Security Council officials. But Hegseth has refuted the report. Moreover, the Defense Secretary lashed out at the Atlantic editor-in-chief, calling him a discredited journalist. This is what he said.
Your information about war plans against the Houthis in Yemen was shared with a journalist in The Atlantic, and were those details classified?
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again.
Why were those details shared on Signal, and how did you learn that a journalist was privy to the targets, the types of weapons used?
I've heard I was characterized. Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that.
But Hegseth and National Security Advisor Tim Walz are facing heat from both political camps, especially the Democrats.
On this text chain, conversations went at length about imminent military operations, including specific targets, weapons, and attack plans. These text messages very likely included classified U.S. intelligence. And the entire time, nobody seemed to realize that a private citizen without security clearance had access to this conversation. Mr. President, this is one of the most stunning breaches of military intelligence I have read about in a very, very long time.
Congressional lawmakers are demanding an investigation into the lapse. And according to reports, the incident is slated to become a major topic of discussion later in the day when leadership of U.S. intelligence agencies appear before the Senate Intelligence Committee to testify about global security threats. And that is currently happening because Tulsi Gabbard is currently addressing the Senate. While the war chart leak has become a major political and national security issue, the U.S. president said he was unaware of it. Hours after the Atlantic article became public and reactions started to pour in. Addressing questions by a reporter, Trump said he knew nothing about the incident but took the opportunity instead to discredit the Atlantic.
Mr. President, your reaction to the story in The Atlantic that said that some of your top cabinet officials and aides had been discussing very sensitive material through Signal and included an Atlantic reporter for that. What is your response to that?
I don't know anything about it. I'm not a big fan of The Atlantic. To me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I think it's not much of a magazine, but I know nothing about it. You're saying that they had what?
Several questions have been raised on the credibility of the administration's senior-most leadership after a high-risk fork spar. Conversations of the leak also revolve around how use of a messenger application to convey classified information breaks the law. It now remains to be seen if the U.S. president will take corrective action against the very people he nominated to his cabinet. Well, let's talk about this breach in the United States. Christopher Hale is a political analyst. He has worked for Presidents Obama and Biden in the White House and on the campaign trail. Hale is now joining us live on this broadcast. It's good to see you, Christopher Hale. What do you think, or how do you think President Trump is going to get himself out of this hot mess? Because Hegseth, Trump, and some of his senior members have discredited Atlantic.
You know, it's interesting. Anyone who is accountable to the public, notably the elected vice president, the elected Speaker of the House, both elected by the American people, have not discredited. In fact, said a mistake was made and corrective actions will be taken. Even the White House itself has given mixed messages and saying that they'll look at the processes, but Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, has also tried to discredit the report. Here's the reality. The Republican lawmakers on the Hill are not happy. The Republican Speaker of the House is not happy. And a significant amount, from what I can tell, of the president's base themselves are not happy. So I do think heads will roll. I think it's most likely going to be Michael Waltz. We saw reporting last night in Politico that they were considering to make him the fall guy. And to be quite frank, he was the one who added the reporter to the thread. So it makes sense that he would be the one who goes down for this. But I don't think they can ignore it. You've seen mixed messaging from the White House on this, but I think the president can count to 10, and he realizes that he's up against the wall here. If you cut Waltz, this is a one-day story. If you keep Waltz on, I think this can continue falling out. And remember, Democrats take control of the House likely, I think, in 2026, and they won't forget about this.
They won't forget about it indeed. Right now, there is a hearing going on at the Senate in the United States in Washington, D.C. Do you think Trump will accept the recommendations being made by the senators? And do you also think that the senators will put these cabinet members to task?
I think so. I think we have to remember that Roger Wicker, who is in the House or on the Senate Armed Services Committee, really took a bullet, if you will, politically to push Hegseth through. He had a lot of concerns. Joni Ernst had a lot of concerns. I think the reality of it is that the administration's on a short leash because a lot of the cabinet picks were non-traditional, and my party argues, I think correctly, that a lot of them were not qualified. And I think the fear that we communicated is juvenile behavior like this could come forth from it. So I think let's get back to the reality. They were discussing. We can fight about what a war plan is. They were discussing U.S. military strikes overseas, the logistics of it, via a commercial messaging app. So I think that there will be corrective actions having to be taken. I think the most likely scenario is the Senate will want some head to roll. And I think Michael Waltz is the likely choice once again. But I can't imagine that they won't ask for something in exchange for this.
All right, there's a lot to talk about, but Christopher Hale, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for talking to us today.
Thank you for having me.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.